Are we on?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Welcome to All Doubt. I am Vincent.
I'm Joel.
And welcome to our first episode. Joel, why don't you tell us about what we're going to be doing here?
Yeah, so in All Doubt, we're going to talk about the ideas that drive the media we love. We find ourselves consuming a lot of media and thinking about the ideas that go on behind the stories, and we think we're really smart.
Sure.
So we thought we'd share those ideas. Hey Vincent, what's new?
I've been watching a lot of episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, really?
Lately for one of my classes, and that's great.
Wow.
But yeah, I've never really gone through the show before.
Yeah.
So it's really neat being able to having to watch it in the context of an academic class, and talking about it with other TV nerds.
Yeah. Okay. So you had to be a nerd to take the class, is what you're saying?
Well, it seems to be. Everyone else, because normally when I'm in a normal English class, I tend to be the one who brings the pop culture references to it. We're in a class about Shakespeare or Chaucer, and I'm like, this is just like that part in the movie District 9 or whatever. And everyone's like, oh man, I never thought of it that way before. I know that movie.
Yeah.
That helps me connect it to The Bard's Tale or whatever.
Right.
But now that I'm in this class that's about pop culture, about TV, and something as big as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I've found that in this situation I'm not the big fish in the small pond, because everyone else is more or less as into pop culture as me, or at least is more familiar with the show than I am.
Oh.
So even if they're not as widely familiar with TV shows and whatever, they are very familiar with this particular TV show, which I am not.
Oh, really?
So it's been an adjustment, but it's been really fun because I have to sort of step up my game to try and compete with all these people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And
I can't just be the one who's bringing in this weird pop culture thing.
Yeah.
Off the cuff,
Mm-hmm. I took a similar course, actually, a post-apocalyptic course, where we talked about zombie movies. We read, I'm not even sure if I could think of the names now. I Am Legend, that was one of the books. I Am Legend, anything that had zombies, that had the end of the world. And yeah, it was fun. It was a good reminder that we can take the things that we like and sort of do what we want to do right now. Like, take something we like and think about the bigger ideas that go on behind it. So it's not just zoning out and watching what have you. It's studying it and making it deeper. Yeah.
Sure. How have you been?
Well, I've been working a lot lately. I had a break in between school ending and starting full-time work again. So that's taken up a lot of my time. But it is acting, and that's gotten me thinking a lot. When I watch a show or something, I'm thinking about what's going on in the actors' minds, how they're doing it, the basic 101s of acting that I just haven't really gone through until now. So with that, I've been watching a lot of Deep Space Nine, which is what we're going to talk about today. I've been watching that and Better Call Saul. Just started Better Call Saul. Yeah, I'm on the third episode. Just finished the second one, and it's good. It's I saw one episode a while ago that was, I want to say episode 8 of season 1, something like that, and I found it much slower. And even now with these two, it's slower than Breaking Bad, and maybe it's because I know exactly where this story's going in a way. I know where Jimmy McGill is going to end up, how he's going to end up as Saul Goodman. So I guess there's less stakes. I know he's not going to be killed. I know he's not going to be... You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, although this sort of reminds me of a quote that I heard from, I forget who, probably someone famous. I assume someone famous. But they were saying how the best endings are ones that are inevitable but unexpected.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the example that they used was the ending of the movie Thelma and Louise. I forget when that's from, but that's from a while ago. So
yeah.
Spoilers for that movie. But again, it's an ending that is inevitable but unexpected.
Yeah.
And because of what they do in the movie, it's a pair of women who are criminals. Mm-hmm. I think they rob banks. I haven't actually seen the movie. I just heard about the ending. But they're criminals, and from what I understand of the time period that it was made in, they're not allowed to win. They weren't allowed to have quote unquote bad guys win. So they're not going to win.
Yeah.
Coming into it, but you don't know how they're not going to win. So when they do at the end of the movie, I believe, drive their car into the Grand Canyon.
That's right.
In a blaze of glory. That's surprising in the specificness of it, but it's inevitable in that they were never gonna win clean.
Yeah. Okay, we have to talk about what we watched for this episode. So we watched the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode called Whispers.
Of I think it's episode 14 of season 2.
Yeah, that's right. The episode focuses on the character O'Brien, who's the chief mechanic of the spaceship that the show is set in. Sorry, the space station that the show is set in. So basically, we're following around O'Brien as he's trying to figure out a mystery. We see him flying towards a planet in the present, and he's talking about the moments that led up to this event and why they happened. And basically, he's going through a normal day. Well, no, nothing about it is normal. He's waking up. His wife is acting differently towards him. Everyone on the ship, except for a select few, are acting really differently towards him. And we're led to believe that there's some sort of problem with everyone except for O'Brien.
Conspiracy theory. Everyone's working against him, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's playing out kind of like a film noir, and that's more or less what's going on. And it gets more and more nefarious as he's finding out all these parts of the spaceship that the space station he normally has access to are blocked to him. So everyone around him is appearing very evil, and he's flying to this planet in order to intercept.
He believes he's just returned from a planning meeting that they're going to have they're going to help organize a meeting between the government and the rebel faction of this alien species.
Right.
And he's worried that whatever force is manipulating or overtaking or controlling his friends and coworkers is trying to negatively affect this meeting. Yeah. And so he's flying to their home system to warn them.
Yeah, or to stop this whatever evil is going on in the background.
Yeah.
But when he gets there, he is almost immediately killed. Not killed. He's shot. He's maimed. He falls over, and out of a closed door, himself walks. That was poorly chosen.
Another him.
Another him walks out, and this new O'Brien is looking at the severely wounded O'Brien on the ground and starts saying things like, "Oh, he looks just like me. How did they do it?" And they did this with about 2 minutes left in the episode. So we're following the main character from his point of view. Everyone seems evil, and in the last 2 minutes we find out that he is a replica of some sort, and the actual O'Brien, who we know from the show, has just been trapped or in some sort of coma this whole time.
No, I think they mentioned that he was captured, and they only recently extracted him from his captors, but that was already after the O'Brien that we've been following, the fake O'Brien, had already stolen a ship and escaped the station.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they couldn't tell him or something.
Yeah.
But to let's take a pause here for a second to explain to people who aren't as familiar with the show, such as myself. I never really followed any of the Star Treks.
Yeah.
But how Deep Space Nine is different than the other Star Treks?
You want me to talk?
Like, just a brief.
I couldn't even tell you.
Okay.
I've been watching this because my girlfriend's been very interested in the show, and I've just sort of caught every second or third episode, and I find them consistently fascinating. But I haven't watched like the original series or even the new movies, so I couldn't really say. I know that a big thing about this is that they're in a space station, which is different from other ones. So there's less exploring and more diplomacy issues that they deal with. They're in a space station that's based outside of a wormhole that's right next to a planet.
Sure.
And in this,
where else would it be?
But right. And in this planet, there's a group called the Bajorans who are regularly oppressed by the Cardassians, another group of aliens, and they're trying. I don't know if I'm the one who should be explaining this, because really, I just pop in, I'm mildly amused for a while, and I pop right back out.
Okay.
Which is also why we chose this episode. It's very self-contained, so someone like you who doesn't watch the show can watch it, get a general idea for the universe, and still have a good time.
Yeah, like I come into this as someone. Like, I went into this episode completely blind. I'm not familiar with Star Trek in general, let alone this specific season, the specific series, or the specific episode of this series. But I felt that I still was able to figure out most of the things. There wasn't anything that made me feel like I was walking into the middle of a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Any more than watching the middle episode of a season of TV.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't reference anything outside of the show too blatantly, or it didn't rest on anything other than what I could glean or that they were able to establish within this single episode.
Right. Yeah, and that's a nice part about Deep Space Nine is that seems to keep happening every episode. It's episodic. Yeah, you could say that about this show. But the reason we talk about this show is for that crazy twist that happens at the end. At the very, very end, it just took me so aback. One thing about this show is you can rely on the fact that there's going to be a twist in almost every episode. It's going to set you up in one direction. It'll, introduce a new character and surprise, they're evil. And it sounds predictable the way I'm describing it, but Star Trek Deep Space Nine has this way of making them consistently unpredictable. So I know there's going to be a twist, but it's always nuts. Like in this one, for instance, when we find out that it's been a replicant of the character O'Brien that we've known throughout the show, so the twist isn't that everyone's evil or that
they're mind controlled, or
that even that O'Brien is mind controlled, or they're in a parallel universe. It wasn't even O'Brien. Consistently with DS9, I can't predict what the twist is going to be, and that sort of speaks to what you were saying about the end. It's inevitable but unexpected.
Yeah,
it's like with this show, inevitably there's a twist, but I didn't see it coming. It would have been impossible to see it coming.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't able to see what was coming either, and part of it is probably because I am completely unfamiliar with the show.
Yeah.
But there was a part where I started to suspect that it was maybe something about him specifically than about everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, I thought it was going to somehow tie into the coffee he keeps drinking, because he keeps ordering the same mix of coffee over and over again several times.
Yeah.
And they almost always just zoom in on it and are very particular about it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was suggesting to me that maybe there's something in his coffee, or something in the coffee is mixing with something he ate back when he was on that other planet or whatever, that was making him super paranoid or him hallucinating or something. So I was surprised when it turned out he was a replicant.
Yeah, it wasn't even the same character.
Yeah.
I think the question for me that this raises is this too much of a twist? What do you think about that? First a question. So the alien race that he's dealing with, the Paradans, I believe, I wasn't sure if him talking to these aliens was a
long-standing plot element or just something introduced for this episode.
Right.
But, so yeah, I don't know if they were a new alien made up for this or some overarching plot, but him being a replicant isn't, as far as I know, out of the question technologically, apparently.
Yeah.
And I did some reading about this, and apparently they were very particular about what they called him, in that they didn't want him to be an android because that would, I don't know, infringe on Data's territory or something. They didn't want to cast him in a bad light. And they also didn't want to call him a clone because that didn't feel right. So they went with replicant as sort of a reference to Blade Runner. And apparently he is indistinguishable from the real O'Brien, at least through the tests that they did with the medical tests and the memory tests and his friends and coworkers talking to him and trying to trip him up.
Right, which was all part of this episode.
Yeah, the doctor made a reference to both his parents, even though knowing his mother had passed away and that his father had remarried.
So O'Brien, the replicant, has these intimate
memories.
So he's basically O'Brien. There's no difference.
And I think they explain that he is too much like who he's trying to copy, and that's why I think one of the lines that's supposed to be very impactful is that he still tried to be the hero in some ways. And we as the audience agree with that because we've been following him and we see his side of the story of everyone just acting super weird around him. But him being so indistinguishable, and within the confines of the episode, we don't find out any way to tell them apart. Raises the question of, couldn't they just have shot the real one? There wasn't any... if I wanted to add further twists to this, or further, emotional... Stakes? I didn't want to say manipulation, but if I wanted to tug at the heart a bit more, I would have... Or some, existential dread, I would have put in something about how, do they know what if they had the real one the entire time? And the one that they found, coincidentally, was actually the replicant.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something that I thought about, which is that this idea that anyone could be a replicant at any given time in this show is way too big to just drop at the last 2 minutes of the show and abandon. If they have the ability to make almost exact copies of people, if not just exact copies, I'm not sure what the difference would be from a clone and from this that we saw in the show. Why isn't this happening all the time? And now I'm scared that it's going to happen at any point in the show. Every episode's going to end with showing O'Brien and being also, O'Brien was a replicant the whole time. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yeah, no, the implications of this being a possibility is much bigger than they acknowledge in the show. Also, I feel not acknowledged enough in this episode is how terrible everyone is at security, because as it's explained in the show, the reason everyone is acting weird is because, one, they're worried about the fake O'Brien doing something bad, and also trying to test him to see if he's the real O'Brien, I guess. Right. So that suggests they're not entirely sure. Yeah. But they're operating under the assumption that he is, in fact, the fake. The fake O'Brien that we're following is the fake O'Brien, and he's going to be up to something.
Yeah.
But them operating under that assumption, the stuff that fake O'Brien is still able to do is very concerning.
Totally.
For the longevity of whatever they're doing on the space station.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think what's confusing is what the characters know and what they want. I look to Keiko, which is O'Brien's wife, her as an example, because this replicant O'Brien, let's say everyone knows that this character is a replicant in this episode. They're letting him sleep in his own bed with his family in the house. It implies that Keiko his wife didn't sleep in the same bed with him.
Right.
I suppose because he didn't have any memory of her coming to bed. But he's allowed to live in the most intimate setting you could imagine this character could be in, with his daughter there
Yeah, and also with the daughter, one of the first interactions in the flashback after he wakes up and leaves his bed or whatever is he tries to, give a fatherly kiss to his young daughter.
Yeah.
And his daughter, turns away and, no, I'm not going to kiss you or whatever.
Yeah.
And that tells me that the kid knows.
Exactly.
Or has been informed that her father is possibly an evil replicant. But why would you tell the child?
Yeah. Why would you tell the kid? Why would you have the kid in the same room? And why is Keiko even in the same room as well? Maybe it's that she's trying to leave first thing in the morning. This could have been easily avoided if they didn't let him sleep there. If they just made some excuse and put him in a hotel.
Or even if we give them the benefit of the doubt and they only found out or suspected about this after he went to bed or whatever. Why do you need to tell the child?
Yeah.
There have been, especially in TV, several cases of, the parents, when they need to keep something from the kid, just making something up.
Yeah.
And then, bundling them out to safety.
Hold on. I think I'm through the looking glass. So the kid is the only one who's able to see that O'Brien was a replicant. So what they did is in the middle of the night, they took the kid. They're like, is this your daddy? And she's like, no. Now they know. Now they're trying to get out of there. Tell everyone else.
Okay, so the kid was the canary in the coal mine.
That's right.
Okay.
She can see more than these medical exams, more than any of their technological mumbo-jumbo through the looking glass.
Okay, another question. I'm not familiar with the show. Is Keiko, O'Brien's wife, a regular on the show? She's not a main character. But is she there often, or did she, the amount of screen time she got on this episode? I imagine it's more because we're following O'Brien.
Yeah.
But is it significantly more? Is she only usually in passing, or is she always, around?
She, like you said, she's not one of the main characters, but she's there. She's the school teacher. Yeah. Okay. She's the teacher on the spaceship. She's recurring, yeah.
Okay.
Whenever you see a story about O'Brien, usually Keiko will be in it as well.
Okay.
I think there might even be a little bit about Keiko in the seasons that I've seen, and I'm halfway through season 3 right now.
Okay, because when I went through it the first time, before the reveal at the end, a lot of her performance, of Keiko, the wife, the teacher, seems sort of weird, as it's supposed to, because you're supposed to believe she's under some kind of conspiratorial influence.
Yeah.
But after finding out about the twist, and that it is O'Brien who's all weird, a lot of the stuff she does seems a lot more believable, in a way, of her trying to, keep things in and not let on to this, as far as she knows, Terminator.
Yeah.
Who's trying to kiss her or whatever.
Yeah.
That everything's fine. Except for, there were a couple of weird spots where I imagine there's in the filming of the show is supposed to be bad acting, so the audience knows that something's up.
Yeah.
Of her at the beginning. It's I'm just gonna go to the school and mark some essays with my child at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's because of this excuse that it's totally real.
Yeah. Well, I think her as an actor has the difficult position of being an actor, being a character who's acting.
Yeah.
And that's something that I loved about Breaking Bad, is that Waltz was always, usually, in many cases, a character who's acting, who's trying to get something else.
Yeah, so that one was, at the beginning, sort of sticking out in terms of it being sort of obvious. I think she says, 3 times in a row. Yeah. Which O'Brien doesn't catch on to, but of course he's not supposed to, because it's the beginning, we're supposed to see a bit more than the characters.
Yeah.
And then the other time that was sort of more in your face was during the meal scene, when she just keeps staring at him, waiting for him to eat the food.
Yeah.
And I'm still not entirely sure what she was trying to accomplish with that. In the narration, O'Brien seems to suspect, and this is before he finds out he's fake, but he seems to suspect there might have been something wrong with the food. And there's a line about him saying when he goes to check it, it's already been thrown away or disintegrated or whatever they do to the food in this post-scarcity society.
I think there's a in the disposal. It's
so
not that unusual.
But I mean, it's this... That seems rather mundane for this magical space station beside a wormhole and that everyone has replicators that can just materialize food out of nowhere. Do they just have like a regular dumpster?
I actually had the thought, it's funny that you say that, by disposal, that there was some sort of food recycling where the matter was like put into a food vat. I don't know, it's hard to picture. Yeah, well, that scene was odd because it never, for a number of reasons, but O'Brien even says that he never found out what Keiko was trying to do to him with the food. So what happened is Keiko made one of O'Brien's favorite meals that she doesn't like. So when they were going to eat it, she served it to him, and then she wasn't going to have any. Which, if Keiko is acting, why wouldn't she
act like
some?
She wants some? Yeah.
Yeah, or make food that O'Brien knows that she's like. Also, is she trying to poison him? Why is she trying to poison him?
Like, I think it's just normal food. And, like, talking about this has given me a theory that maybe she's trying to see if it's him by giving him some food that she knows he likes.
Oh, okay.
To see if he still likes it. Because if he doesn't like it, then it's, he's an evil duplicate or whatever. Right. He's someone's wearing my husband's skin or whatever.
The daughter was right.
The daughter is right. But I suppose she leaned too much into it and made a food that he likes but she doesn't. I think that's...
Oh, okay.
If it was... Because I think all the suspicion comes from her apparently being entirely revolted by this meal enough that she won't even pretend to like it to fool this a potentially killer robot.
Yeah.
So like, I think from her position, it would have been better to get a food that perhaps they both enjoy.
Yeah.
Or maybe this suggests something about their relationship in that he hates all the food she likes and she hates all the food he likes. I don't know.
Yeah. Either way, it was odd. And this episode seems to be missing these threads like that. We're seeing these situations like that and we just have to guess why they're acting that way and what they want. And then the ending is so over the top that it's... Like, for me, going back to my question from before, it was too much. It's sort of a cop-out. Like, well, we got 2 minutes left. He was a replicant? All right.
Yeah, and I remember I read, like I said, I did a bit of reading about the episode, and I remember reading about this episode, saying that the writers wanted more time at the end to better... I don't know, explain or establish this.
Yeah.
You know? And while I like, there are some benefits of, pressing the eject button at the highest point of tension, It's like, I think there's some writing theories where, you start closest to the action and then you end, you don't let it linger too long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the whole, I wish there was more time. I'm like, this is the second season. This is the middle of the second season. You've been doing this for a while. Yeah. It's not like they suddenly... Or maybe I'm completely mistaken. But it's not like they suddenly cut your time in half.
Yeah.
Or something. I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could have cut out some of those scenes of him, like, hiding behind a pillar, watching people be suspicious.
Yeah. Yeah, or put in more explanation for the characters' drives. Overall, it seems... It's fun because it's really ambitious.
Right.
And that's my thought with Star Trek, specifically with Deep Space Nine, because it's what I've seen, is it's fun because it's ambitious. They try to explain all these things. And it's admirable that with this... The technology that they have in this universe, and with the different species, and... with so much, they always try to explain it. There are very few things where they're just like, it works because of crystals. I appreciate that.
Like some like hand-wavy, like, oh, we don't need to think about this right now.
Yeah.
Let's move on kind of thing.
Star Trek is, it's the kind of show that tries to explain all these different possibilities, even if the possibilities and the situations are really unusual, really over the top. Yeah.
There's another show that sort of does this rather frequently, is Doctor Who. Show
really?
I'm a fan of. I don't know if you've seen any of it.
No, none.
Oh man, we are adding that to the list. But on the show, the Doctor, the main character, this alien,
I
ageless.
get the Doctor reference.
But I know, I'm just, in case, for the listeners,
okay, sure.
as apparently you know all about this show that you admit to have never seen.
Kind of an expert. So.
But the Doctor, the main character, this infinitely old alien, apparently,
right.
Has some, devices on him that he carries around to make the plot run smoother. Mm-hmm. He has some psychic paper, which is which was introduced with the revived show when it came back in 2005. And the thing that he always has is his sonic screwdriver, which in many ways is a magic wand because it just does whatever he needs, unless the story needs him to be unable to do that, in which case it can't do that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's whatever, and they never really explain what it does, and when it's convenient, it just doesn't do things it has done in the past. Particularly, there's one episode where the Doctor and his companions are hiding in an alley, if I recall correctly. They're hiding in this alley behind some dumpsters to try and escape the Cybermen, which is this evil robots who want to capture and upgrade and convert people to be more of them, And so they're hiding behind the dumpster, and the Doctor just takes out his sonic screwdriver, presses a button on it to activate it, and the Cybermen just turn around and walk away.
Okay.
And he has never used that since then.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even says, "Oh, I'll just use this. Whatever. It only works once," or whatever. He just does it, and they leave. Yeah. And it's weird that he doesn't. That has never come up. That is a super useful feature of this device, but it's never explained. So we're just supposed to roll with it.
Yeah, and that's sort of what we're seeing with this replicant idea in Star Trek. It's something that, of course, it's going to work in this situation, because it's going to work for every situation, to get out of every story.
Yeah, and by them creating this new term, replicant, for what Faith O'Brien is, they don't need to rely on previously established stuff about androids or previously established stuff about clones.
Yeah, within this universe.
Within this universe.
Yeah.
They just make this third category, which I don't know if they ever use again.
Oh, yeah.
I was, again, doing a bit more reading up on this episode, and when I clicked on the page about replicants on the Star Trek wiki, it just showed, and I skimmed it, and it just showed a picture of Fake O'Brien dying. So I feel like if they used it more, they would have more pictures than just that one.
Well, this has got to be a very prominent use of it, at the very least.
But it seems, like you say, so powerful of a thing that it should show up more. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not entirely familiar with the Star Trek canon, the Star Trek universe.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, Starfleet Command, that's what it's called, right? The big organization that everyone's
pretty sure.
Sure. I'm sure we'll hear about it if we're wrong.
Yeah.
But that they're supposed to be some kind of, they're supposed to be a pretty big deal. They're supposed to be close to the top of the hierarchy, if not the very top of this hierarchy. And so they have the coolest toys. They have the detectors and the sensors and so on. And that if this whatever process was this Fake O'Brien underwent to be created to the degree he is, and as accurate a duplicate of O'Brien he is shown to be, that the sentence is getting away from me. But it's weird that Fake O'Brien was made so well to fool the top dog, more or less, in this universe.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised at how cavalier, almost, how unconcerned the characters are during the reveal of the reveal.
Yeah.
Or maybe, again, like I keep saying, not entirely familiar with the show. Maybe everyone is just super reserved. Everyone just holds their emotions close to the chest, or they don't react as largely as I would if I found out there was perfect cloning technology.
Yeah, or let's also face the reality of, at any given point, we might find out that we're replicants. It's there's another Joel and someone shoots me. And I'm like, oh shit, like it was, I just started existing today. It was just someone implanted memories.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
And, like, this is sort of something that has a twist, has existed for a while. I don't know how old it was when Star Trek did it, but there have been some movies. I think on TV tropes, they've referred to it's the tomato in the mirror trope, which is, I think, a reference to Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, I want to say.
Okay.
Where it occurs. But there's also other movies like The Sixth Day, where Schwarzenegger turns out to be the fake Schwarzenegger. And in a similar sense, in a subplot in one of the later seasons of Futurama, of someone turning out to be the real or the fake version of someone else. So it's it's been done before. Maybe because this episode came out in '93, I believe it was a big enough. It captured enough people's imagination for it to be done later on. It for me, not knowing any of these characters, it did not show up on my radar as a possibility, as a possible solution.
Yeah,
or maybe I just grabbed on to the whole coffee thing.
Yeah,
too much.
Yeah, maybe the writers overreached a bit. Maybe. What do you say when we move on to final thoughts?
Sure.
Without giving a grade or an appraisal to this, I appreciate this kind of ending and this kind of episode in this show or in any show because it's really unusual and it's trying really hard to fit a lot into 40 minutes. And I appreciate that. Even if it's too over the top, which this show consistently is in my mind, if it reaches too far, I like the fact that it's reaching, that it's trying. And I like that it's not perfect. So I can appreciate an ending like this, I suppose. It's also important because I find it so terrifying. Like this idea that we're all replicants, that we're all replicants. I guess I reached to that point, but
well, it's possible, like as far as the show is telling us, it is undetectable.
Yeah,
totally.
There's like for some reason they expected it of O'Brien. It wasn't exactly clear why. Maybe to do with the circumstances. But even in a later episode that I saw, there was a complete twin of someone else. This could have been another replica situation, I don't exactly remember, who fooled everyone and broke past security and started, doing nefarious things.
Sure.
So that thought is really interesting and scary and fun. Those are my final thoughts. What are your final thoughts, Vincent?
It was an enjoyable episode. Not knowing the context of the episode, I still found it was very understandable. It worked as a bottle episode because it's almost entirely following the perspective of fake O'Brien. So I guess they couldn't, pull in threads from other plot lines they might have running if they do have them. There were some like weird acting things, but I could chalk most of that up to it being a show that is from '93.
Yeah.
And like in that one scene when O'Brien was talking to the kid, I forget his name, Jake.
Jake, yes.
And that Jake was moving his hands around a lot. That seemed weird. But that's a minor thing. Right. The twist caught me by surprise. And while part of that might be because I am, again, not familiar with the show, I think it did a good job of it. By them, from what I understand, this is when they introduced the concept of replicants. And so that is sort of a cheat. But they did... For most of the episode, we are led to believe that something is wrong with the crew rather than O'Brien himself, and I think largely they were successful in carrying that through.
Mm-hmm.
And not, I don't know, revealing their hand too early.
Right, so the twist caught you by surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that this O'Brien that we've been following for the entire time was the fake O'Brien, and that puts everything before that in a different context.
Yeah.
And makes you want to watch the episode again.
Yeah.
Just to re-see to recontextualize what everyone was doing.
Mm-hmm. And also to watch it with friends, so you can keep looking at them for their reactions and make sure they know that you know the ending, and they're going to be so surprised.
Yeah, no, man. I a couple of years ago, when I was living in the dorm, I found out that my buddy there had never seen Fight Club.
Oh yeah,
and did not know the ending of Fight Club.
Those people are so rare.
So I was so excited, So I was like, dude, we are watching Fight Club tonight. Yeah. And when the twist happened, if you haven't seen Fight Club, listener,
spoilers.
I'm not going to say the spoiler, but forget that there is a spoiler and then watch Fight Club. But when we were watching Fight Club, and as it got closer to the reveal, I started looking more at my buddy to see what his reaction is, and then when the twist happened, his jaw just dropped.
Oh, yeah?
And he was like, what? He was floored.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
He's living in that state of euphoria that we did at one point.
Yeah.
When we were children.
Yeah, and that's so rare because, especially something like Fight Club, it's so widely known.
Yeah.
That there is a twist and the twist itself are both pretty widely known. Same with Citizen Kane.
I don't actually know that one.
Okay.
Don't spoil it.
But
I'll have to watch it.
It's one of those movies where a good number of people watch it for the twist.
Mm.
It's become like a famous twist.
Yeah.
So the whole sharing in this surprise with someone else is something to be said.
Right. It's fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for condensing the words I'm trying to say into it's fun.
Vincent's final thought. It's fun. Cool. Well, I think that pretty much does it for us.
I think that's it for the both of us. Thank you, listener, so much for listening to All Doubt. You can reach us a bunch of different ways that we haven't entirely ironed out yet, but there will probably be links in the description. If you have any, send us your questions, send us your tweets. We'll probably have a Twitter.
Probably.
Right? Yeah.
Probably have a Gmail, I would imagine.
A Gmail, or maybe our own website. Who knows?
Who knows?
You do, because we're from the past.
Hey, it's Joel from the future. We in fact do have our own website, which is alldoubt.com. We have our own Gmail, alldouhtpod@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at AllDoubtPod, on Facebook at AllDoubt, and you can support our Patreon at, you guessed it, AllDoubt. Thank you so much for listening. Our next episode will be up in 2 weeks, and we look forward to hearing from you. Please contact us. Tell us topics we should cover. Tell us what you think. And thanks.